And hello and welcome to another Wednesday Paint and Chat. I hope you all are having a delightful, happy new year. Our first live stream of the new year, actually. Thought I would do stuff last week, and instead I played Turtle WoW. But that's neither here nor there.
You play Turtle WoW?
Oh my god, I love Turtle WoW.
Oh my god, are you on Alliance or Horde?
Alliance.
Me too.
Yes, the correct action. Yes. Oh my god. Okay, well, I know what we're talking about right
now.
With me, I've got disembodied voice over here.
Why, hello. I've also been playing lots of Turtle WoW.
Turtle WoW. And then Flo, my wonderful painter Flo. Not painting my stuff. What are you painting tonight, Flo?
I am rush painting some stuff for Louise so he can take them with him on his...
the tournament this weekend?
Yeah, well, no, I don't think I'll have it done for that. Maybe I will. We'll see. We'll see.
Oh, another one in Las Cruces or something?
I can't remember where he said he's going, but he's traveling and he's taking stuff with him. And so he had a few things.
Oh, I wonder if it's LVO.
Yes, yes, it is. It is LVO.
Yeah, that's happening this month.
Oh my god, is that already happening?
Yeah, it's already happening.
Oh, wow.
We'll see. Whatever. Anyway. And then we've got a special, wonderful guest tonight who I'm loving more and more by the moment I talk to her. Miss Harmony Ginger in the chat. Welcome, welcome.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. So
I'm really excited. I'm sorry.
For those of you who are not familiar, Miss Harmony Ginger, which is a cool name, by the way. Like, what? Tell the audience a little bit about what you do. I'm sure several people already here are familiar with you, but what would be the 30-second like elevator pitch of your channel?
Yeah, like 90% of what I do is shit post on Twitter. I said I wouldn't use any bad language and then immediately opened up with that, so I'm sorry.
I don't know if there's another phrase for that, though. That's a very
I think it's actually a technical term. It's fine.
It is. Yeah, most of what I do is I shitpost on Twitter. I appear on several different YouTube channels occasionally. I do have my own YouTube channel. I haven't put a whole lot on there recently, but I do have a monthly cast that I do on there with some of the guys from a group called the Bro SR. Oh,
wow. J-Mac. Well, welcome to the chat. Is he a friend of yours?
Yeah.
Dang, dude. Yeah. Appreciate you dropping some $50 on the super chat.
And right. And I post a lot about my game. I share a lot of content about my campaign that I run. I should be putting out a rules document to help people run a campaign similar to mine soon. I keep saying soon, but there's a lot of editing that needs to be done on it still. But yeah, that's basically it.
So what's the name of your game again?
So it's just the campaign I run. I call it a Godstein. What I do is I let my players play as gods in the campaign world, and basically I run kind of a dual game where the players play as gods, but they also play as like player characters. This is like a Dungeons and Dragons game. Sorry, your audience is a war game audience, so I don't know like if they know what I'm talking.
There's a lot of overlap, I think. Okay. Most people are here at least familiar with like D&D, obviously.
Yeah. So I've been experimenting with ways to blend kind of a campaign Dungeons and Dragons style play with more of a war game style, and sort of taking it in some ways back to its roots. But in other ways, I've been trying to innovate, letting players play as gods in the campaign world in like kind of an ongoing diplomacy-like game, or like a Bronstein style. I don't know. Are you guys know Bronstein?
I watched one of your videos specifically talking about some controversy about the word for some reason.
Okay, yeah.
And so I was like, okay, it's a style of a game that has
it's like a multiple objective game where each player has different objectives, and they're like they're diplomatizing with each other, and there's a referee that enforces a fog of war among like what everyone's doing.
What people know and don't know.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, okay. When you described it in your videos, sorry to interrupt. I was just gonna say, when you described it in your video, like there were like 3 conditions to meet it, and they seemed very broad.
Yeah, they are. I think so. The more I kind of have learned about it, the more I've kind of been moving away from using the word entirely, because what it was originally a man named David Wesley ran these Bronstein games at conventions, and they were called Bronsteins because it was like a college town of Bronstein. And basically each player would take on a different role in the world. They'd be like the chancellor, a student, the mayor, like they'd have a different role in the town. And there would be like there'd be like all sorts of like horrible things happening, and everyone would try to achieve their objectives. And
It sounds very Cthulhu-like when you describe it like that. I just think of Arkham Horror or something,
interesting.
or Arkham Asylum.
Yeah.
Although-
It's mostly a LARP type game, but I've sort of moved away from using the word because there's been a lot of controversy on it. Yeah.
Diplomacy LARP, maybe that works. Or
So is
Yeah,
this
I don't
part
know.
of this comment here from JP Got Rockets?
JP,
A
welcome.
t-shirted historian?
Yeah.
I feel like I just
yeah.
got a little chunk of history just now.
Yeah.
Harmony
So,
tends to- oh man, you're getting called
yeah.
out in the chat already, girl.
Okay. So I played in a Bronstein game with RDubs, and I heard because somebody posted something in the wrong chat. Because this was like text-based. Somebody posted something in the wrong chat, and they accidentally put out like something about RDubs was like saying, if Harmony shows up alone, I'm gonna run her over with a monster truck. And it sort of derailed the whole game.
Good Lord.
That's an interesting statement.
So, but yeah, that was a thing that happened. But yeah, I don't know. I've sort of been moving away from using the word just because there's been a lot of pushback on the word, because friends of David Wesley are like, I don't know. I don't want to like bring up the whole controversy again.
Sure,
so
yeah, that's fine. I mean,
down, but friends of David Wesley don't like us using the word to describe my home game. So,
No?
but
well, Andrew's
anyway,
gotten a little curious. So you play as gods. Now, when you
yeah.
say that, I'm thinking like the Greek pantheon or something. Like,
Yeah.
or is it kinda
Oh
like-
man. Right. So what I did in my home game, and man, I'm going to be talking about my home game, and if there's like it's mostly because I like literally just ran it. Like I came here right after my home game was done.
It's
So
like fresh in your mind still.
Fresh in your mind. Let's do this.
yeah, and my favorite thing to talk about is always the last thing I did. So yeah, in my home game, what I did was I turned D&D into like a diplomacy style game by having each player make a god in the world, and they had specific parameters. Like we made a list of 20 domains, and they each rolled 3 of them. They picked 2 out of the 3 to describe their god. Like the different domains were like arcana, chaos, war, time, order. There were 20 of them, like light, trickery.
Oh wow!
Just
You could
a
get
bunch
real
of them.
granular.
Yeah. And so you get a list of 3 of them, you make a god based on 2, and then you have sort of a free form diplomacy style game that happens. It happens like over a long period of time in my game, because at first we had like a world building exercise where everyone would make their civilization and they'd sort of fight each other. And there was a lot of molding of the world. They figured out exactly what they were doing. Each player made 1 race as well. And that was the list of playable races. And then that happened over the period of about 8 hours. And then from then on, we've had like an ongoing, like 2-year-long diplomacy game where like every month, one of them is elected to lead a divine council of the gods, and then they get to like make a major decision for the world. They get some of the resources that I put in the game called mana, where basically they can use the mana to like do all sorts of things at the table. They can also freely exchange it. And they have like elections every month, right? Where like somebody is elected to lead the council, like monthly. Mm-hmm. And there are 14 players total now in the game. This meets like 3 times a week with different players. So they're like always dealing with each other, paying each other mana for their votes, because like one of them's going to get elected each month. And I actually just announced the winner this month, like a couple hours ago. But yeah, so it's like a long term freeform diplomacy style game above the table while they're actually playing D&D at the table. So they also have player characters that they're controlling most of the time during the game. I'm sorry, that was probably really disjointed. I'm just always excited to talk
I
about it.
stopped a little bit. I hiccuped a little bit when I heard 14 players, like at a time.
Yeah. No.
Okay.
So the game meets, I said 3 times a week, but it now meets 4 times a week. I just don't run one of them. I don't run 2 of them most of the time. So
Okay.
we have like 6 GMs and
Oh,
and it takes place in the same world. The world uses real time. So we use like 1-to-1 time. Every real day is 1 in-game day. So time passes at the same rate. There's like a fog of war for each player. All the PCs are like are like doing their own things in the world, and the gods are always fighting out of the world. And since Quick asked who the winner was, this month it was the god of death and taxes.
He's always
Yep.
the winner.
Yep.
Also known as the god of inevitability.
Yes,
Stranger than
actually,
fiction.
yes. You've got the theming of his god. Yep. It was a wild election. It could have gone either way. The god of depression was or no, it was the god of anxiety was giving him a run for it.
Okay, fair
I
enough.
just want to openly show my support right now for the god of Oxford commas. So if we're going to get very granular with our deities.
It's very one specific thing. You just come around saying, well, actually, you were unclear because.
We've had some creative interpretations of the domains rolled. Like I said, the god of anxiety, he rolled the domains prophecy and infernal, and he interpreted it as anxiety, which I think works.
Yeah.
And then, we also have the god of entertainment, which was a creative interpretation of light and trickery.
Okay, sort of like the Hollywood approach to it almost.
Yeah. Oh yeah, his priests run a traveling WWE troupe.
Yes.
See, this is what I love about
So wait a minute.
what you can do in RPGs.
What is the era time-wise that this fits into? I hope it's like Roman or medieval. Or...
No, it's kind of it's so the era is kind of mostly medieval. There are a couple places a little more technologically advanced. But yeah, it's been a really fun campaign. It's been going on for about a year now.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
And you're able to meet like 3 and 4, well, not you specifically, but like that group is able to meet 3 or 4 times a week to keep up with it. That I guess that's all. Are they meeting online or is this a physical location?
Yeah, no, it's online. I don't know if I would have the endurance to do this physically, to be honest. But
it seems like a lot
players from everywhere. Yeah.
Well, yeah, so much of it's kind of moved to being online now, but I don't know that there's been like, I don't know. I haven't looked into it. Doesn't seem like there's like amazing formats for doing remote play as much as, like when you're in a room and you're all like, I don't know, giggling and making stupid jokes around each other that sound way funnier in the moment than they sound later. But like, what do you use for running those online?
Yeah. So I mostly use Discord. I use Roll20 for like a world map, but I'm kind of like, I don't know. Sometimes I use battle maps, but I'm like kind of evolving into being more of a theater of the mind person.
Yeah.
But I mean, we kind of have to do it like very off the cuff because I don't know what they're gonna do, and I don't even know what's happening in half the world. They usually tell me. And like I said, sometimes some of them run it. I ran the one that I just got out of. It was sort of a short session. They just kind of went to a fight club, got away with rigging the results. And it was a very it was a very goofy session.
So what counts as a short session?
Well, today it was just like maybe 2.5 hours.
Okay.
Normally it's about like 3 or 4.
Players in here doing great.
Yeah.
Everyone appreciates you all being here, supporting your amazing GM. Am I dolled up for this, Jade? Yes, I dressed up just for Harmony.
I like put my hair up.
Well, your hair has more curl than mine already. Okay, I had to compete somehow. Messing with my dang chi, and I don't know. Sometimes I can be a girl. Dang it.
You always want what you don't have because I'm jealous of people with straight hair. Like sometimes I wish it wasn't like all over the place, but
well, I'm sure you never get I'm sure the redhead jokes never get old. I'm sure.
Yeah, they called me.
Overlord. What'd they tell you?
They called me Cherry Head Face when I was like 10. I don't know why that was the nickname. It was like the worst one. It was very uncreative.
Yeah, no kidding.
I don't know. I've never heard
Mhm.
that before. That has a little ring to it.
I don't know. I just remember a girl yelling it at me on the playground.
Huh.
So random. Okay, so you've been GMing for quite some time, right?
Yeah, a
Where
bit.
did this like start from? Like, how did you grow up hearing about these? Did you learn about these as an
No.
adult? Like,
I learned about it as an adult because when I was a kid, I wasn't allowed to play RPGs. Because like I didn't know.
family-wise, was it like the devil
Yeah,
stuff
it
or
was.
something?
Yeah.
Okay.
It was. I grew up Southern Baptist.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And my parents weren't well, it was mostly my mom, which I love my mom. I don't want to say anything bad about my mom. I mean, she's gone now, but
Yeah.
but she was a wonderful mother, but she really like she heard Dungeons and Dragons, she was like, not my child.
Yeah, I had the exact same experience.
Yeah, his mom
Yeah.
would throw out what your White Dwarf magazines, right?
Yeah. Oh man, I had to convince her. Like I'd borrowed a D&D handbook from a friend of mine, and she was going to throw it out, and I was like, "It's not mine. Like, can I just give it back to the guy it belongs to?"
Oh
Like,
no.
this isn't, it's like she's like, "Fine." And so I was able to, not have to go back to school the next day and be like, "Sorry, man, your book got thrown away. I'll have to figure out how to pay you back."
Oh no.
But yeah,
Yeah, I had like the opposite end of that experience one time. A religious friend of mine actually borrowed my Hobbit book to read it, and it was like a really nice book too. It was like one of the big hardcovers, and
Oh
his
yeah.
mother threw it out because I don't know, like I'm pretty sure the
Huh.
Hobbit's like Christian, but
yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
It is.
Tolkien was Catholic.
Yeah, he
Yeah.
was very Christian. In fact, he was, I think,
so
fairly instrumental in helping C.S. Lewis become Christian. They used to debate a lot was when they were in professors in college. I was going to say when they were in college, not quite the same. When they were
It's
professors in college.
it tends to be the fallout of really low resolution understandings of things, right?
Yeah.
I mean, and that can be chalked up to people not thinking or unable to think about it. But yeah, like when you hear Dungeons and Dragons, or you hear that there's monsters and demonic things, and you have no curiosity or ability to know what the underlying message of that is, then one, you make horrible decisions because, yeah, like the Hobbit being thrown out as anything like anti-Christian is absurd. But then you also end up falling for stupid stuff like anything on like Disney children's television. So it's just a mistake. Like it's one of those things where it's like just calm down for 2 seconds and think.
It's funny. My sister was raised, she was very religious, married a pastor, raised her kids very much in the church. And she was just like, "Oh my gosh, Disney, everything, Disney, Disney." And it's like, I want you to watch Death to Smoochie, because that, I don't know if you've ever seen that,
I
but
love that movie.
it's amazing. And it's so illustrative of like children's entertainment, where it is just an entertainment industry. And because it's such a simple and easy market, it doesn't even take a lot of, like, there's children's entertainment out there with like lots of inspiration and really good story writing and stuff, but you don't need it, right? Teletubbies will show you don't need anything. And so because it's such a low-hanging fruit, just all kinds of money grubbing people just looking to make a buck find their way in there. It's like kind of seedier than other branches of the entertainment industry. And so it's like,
That was a Robin Williams flick, right?
Yes.
Robin Williams with it, Ed Norton.
Ed Norton's in it. Yeah. It's worth watching. It's definitely an older movie, but it's one of those like super dark comedies.
Yeah.
So if that's your jam, then
yeah,
you're
it's
like,
fantastic.
I'm a big fan of that movie.
yes. All right,
So,
I gotta yell at Andrew real quick. I'd like to declare for Menoth, God of mankind, creator of the flame, the wall, and the law. Miranda can explain why his protectorate is better than steampunk Soviet Russia. Okay, first off, it's diesel punk, more likely.
No, it's not diesel punk.
It is steampunk, but it's like proper steampunk. I have a whole issue with
full
steampunk.
metal steampunk.
Full metal steampunk. Okay, so there's that. And Khador is not Soviet Russia. It is Tsarist Russia. Okay, so you need to chill out with your hateful rhetoric in my chat, Andrew.
And there are more Menites in Khador than there are Morrowians.
So I came from playing a lot of War Machine. Like that was the first war game I got super familiar with. Like technically I played 40K like way back, but then it was like way too expensive for me and not very fun. And so I played War Machine, and that's all the lore there, right? Like they actually did a wonderful job because War Machine as a war game actually enveloped and grew out of the RPG known as originally the Witchfire trilogy from the Open Gaming license from like the year 2000, as we discussed earlier, which I guess you were born out.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it was a role-playing game before it was a miniature game.
Yeah, it was an RPG first, and then it became the war game, and then it became an RPG again in 2012, and then they did it again in 2018. I can't actually remember when they redid it. I have the new stuff either, but they did it all under the new 5th edition of D&D license, and or they're 5e compatible, and I never bothered to learn how to play 5th edition because I was like, I don't want to learn more rules. I got really lazy.
I mean, the 2d6 system was amazing.
I
it
really
was
liked
really good. And
so here's my
kind of
issue with
that.
D20s.
And in fact,
yeah,
not to interrupt, but if people are interested, definitely go check out Patty's Parlor on Rumble, where we've been playing the 2d6 system on there with A Life Lived by the Coin is the name of those videos.
That's right. That's our
really
RPG we're in right now. In fact, Jeremy, I think I saw him in the chat giving us crap. There is. Well, he's on my side with this, thank goodness. But he's our game master for A Life Lived by the Coin over on Patty's Parlor on Rumble, where I play the amazing Marisol Luck of the Country of Ord, and Disembodied Voice plays. What do you?
I play a little gobber alchemist named Zeke.
The most narcissistic gobber you'll ever meet.
No, just the most famous gobber and most well-loved in the land.
Yes.
There are 2 distinct songs that, people in that land have written about him.
It's true.
That you can hear on the show.
You can hear them. He's okay. So yeah, we'll have to get to that topic because I would love to talk a little bit about AI in storytelling.
You were talking about, you started to say something about the D20 and then.
Oh, I was going to just say as a very total, it's not an important statement, but just like my issue that I always had with rolling a D20 for decision making was the idea that like an utter failure at 5% seems really high to me. And as a person who routinely rolls ones, it was very difficult for me to get over like
the 2D6 or 2D10 systems.
Well, 2D6 was what I played before, and I like those.
Yeah.
So 2D6 is kind of nice because it creates a bell curve. And so you're moving around sort of on that curve instead of just a linear increments of 5%,
Yeah. I've experimented, and I know this is like so not rules as written or anything, but I've experimented with 2D10 D&D, and but like really that's just I mean, I don't know, it is too much like Worlds Without Numbers to not just like give that a shout out.
No, you mean now 2D10, you mean you add them together, or it's a percentile dice?
Oh, no, you add.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, I too kind of prefer 2 dice to 1 just because you do have that bell curve.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It tends to even out some of the more absurd things that can happen. But Crimson Jester in the chat, welcome. And JP Got Rockets wanted to throw a shout out to Miss Flo, working on your volumetric highlights there. Some good dry brushing work.
Thank you.
The dry brushing is always the most interesting part to watch.
So you've played with miniatures then, right?
I mean, I paint miniatures. I wouldn't say I use them.
Okay. Well, you mentioned earlier that you kind of have moved more toward theater of the mind, but
yeah. And we also play online, so I don't really get an opportunity to use miniatures very often. But like, I own miniatures. I paint them sometimes. I use them with what I run with for my niece and nephews.
Oh yeah, that's always fun. So, any particular brand? Are they like Reaper miniatures or?
Oh gosh.
Whatever you can find.
It's just like whatever looks cool in the moment.
No, I'll tell you, they're Fantasy Flight. because I get them from board games.
Ah,
Yes.
yeah. If you ever want to run
It's
a
like the
board game
security
Kickstarter,
measure.
throw minis in it, and your output like triples as far as people buying. Ice.
Yes. He
I do like-
is a player of mine.
Oh, okay.
Click
Yeah.
clack math rocks. I like that.
Yes.
That's a
man.
great reference to dice. And it is
Can I
more fun
address-
to roll dice. You know, that's one of the upshots that wargaming gets. You know, you play 40K and you're like, I need to roll 40 dice. And that's on like a low end.
I have a few of my players in the chat. I also saw another one in there somewhere. But can I address like Andrew Fairbank's question?
Yes.
Because I'm happy to say absolutely not. I've always rolled face up and players can see it. I'm like super anti-fudge.
Oh, okay.
She's just
It's not a
cold,
game
harsh
anymore.
reality.
Yeah, I am. Like, I say you die, you die. I'm sorry. I can't do anything about it.
Are Bronstein or this type of Harmony Gingerstein games, like, are they particularly lethal? Like quickly lethal?
I don't know. I mean, I don't know. I can tell you that I have died in my own campaign.
That's bold.
Yeah.
That's you go
so
hard. My fault.
there's
My
like
moderate.
more than one. There's more than one DM. We have like 6 DMs. I think like 6 DMs, right? They'll
Okay.
correct me if I'm wrong.
I was gonna say if there's one DM and you kill the DM, is that like dividing by
No,
0?
we have
like the
6
world is just
DMs.
gone.
We have 6 DMs, and I think I'm the one that DMs the most. I'm normally DM, but we have like other people that'll jump in and DM certain locations because they know more about those parts of the world than I do. So I was playing a character one time, and it was a sorcerer, and I was level 1, and the rest of the party was like level 5, 6, 7, whatever. I'm their little squire, right? And so anyway, we find this like hill giant or something, and they like all run and hide and leave me behind, and he smashed me into the rock. And
oh, that's rude.
so now my character's like a stain on the side of the mountain.
Huh.
5? Oh wait, we have 5 DMs. Okay, yeah, 5 DMs then.
5
I thought it was
DMs.
6.
So, how much do the DMs communicate with each other for this campaign?
Well, we always have to be in communication because everything is going in like one world.
Right.
So, I mean, we have to sort of be on the same page. So I just knocked something off my desk. Oh, well, it wasn't important.
It's okay. You can trash everything during the live show, and just as long as it's in anger.
Yeah, it's good. But yeah, so what was the question?
How much do the DMs talk to each other?
Like a lot.
Okay.
They're always
so there's like
talking.
reports almost like this is what this party did, and
not formal
anyway,
reports.
Yeah.
But like we the major events need to carry over because there are more like I said, there are 14 players, there are 4 groups, and I mean they're in different parts of the world mostly, so a lot of times like what one group is doing isn't going to affect the other group sometimes, but sometimes it does, because like the whole world is about the size of the UK in our game, so it's not huge.
Yeah.
It's pretty small.
So with TV, do you mean in the game or IRL?
I can't invite any of the DMs. They would all kill me. Like,
that's why she
I'm
brings
actually
a
really
gun.
small. Yeah.
Mostly me harming a different group of me. Well, that's
yeah. So this player that is in the chat right now, he is the cause of like 90% of the problems in the world because he's like the Borg player. So no, his god is the god of chaos, and like her chosen people are like these spider people. He decided because they all got to make a race, right? And his race were spider people, because he is the god of chaos, and his race were spider people. He called them the arachno capitalists, and and they're like they're in a war right now with different spider people, because the different spider people found a source of magic, and the first spider people wanted it, and they're like the Borg, so there are like 3 bazillion of them, and they're like everywhere. And of course, like the spiders have I want to talk about the spiders now. All right, so the spiders don't live very long. I mean, they're like I think they're like, I can put this in terms you understand. They're like tyrannids.
Okay,
so like a hive mind.
So all they
Yeah,
do is
they're-
consume.
Yeah, right. They don't live very long, and they're really focused on knowledge. So they're like always like they're always happy to sacrifice themselves in the pursuit of knowledge. They understand that their own lives aren't worth anything.
So there's just a lot of
It's
lessons on how to not do that again.
yeah, they're very ridiculous. But yeah, so a lot of the problems in the world right now are everybody trying to defend against the spiders who are fighting the spiders that don't have any problem causing massive collateral damage around them. Yeah.
You know, the way spiders are.
The way, yeah, it's just nature working. What's up, Lacerator? He's from my friendly local game store. Those are his minis getting painted in the chat, I assume. You ready for LVO, Louise? Let's see. The UK is a little small. Yeah, slightly smaller than California. Just slightly.
The UK is smaller than New Mexico.
Are you
which is
guys in
way smaller
California?
than California. No,
No,
We're in New Mexico.
We're Albuquerque, New Mexico.
Oh, I think you said that. Oh, that's where Breaking Bad was. That's all I know about.
Yes.
It's the only way
Yes.
anyone ever knows this
Yeah,
place.
right.
It used to be Bugs Bunny, but now
Yeah.
it's Walter
Yeah.
White.
Right.
I mean,
Kind of a switch, you know.
it's a little bit of a chain, but it's fine. Yes. The common phrase, because the normal phrase is land of enchantment. And it has its moments, but
And so everyone here calls it the land of entrapment.
Oh,
yes.
that's great. Oh yeah, the current plan that the players have is investing in a giant can of Raid and covering the spider mountain in glue.
I feel like
Making
the
it just a big
arachnid
piece of
capitalist will just like
flypaper.
seize the means of production of that Raid factory. Sounds like a challenge, but you know, maybe they can overcome through litigation and I don't know.
I'm very sorry to your audience. I think you knew what you were getting into. You brought a D&D nerd on and then asked me about my campaign. So
I love
can't not
hearing.
go on along. Yeah.
No, I love it when people talk about things that they are genuinely passionate about and genuinely enjoy, right? I mean, that is kind of what the whole point of the hobby is. I mean, and I say that as like kind of carefully, right? Because my personal view is that hobbies should be somewhat enriching. I don't think like watching TV is necessarily a hobby usually, but like something like D&D, you're writing characters, you're talking about stories, you're collectively telling stories and like exploring ideas usually. Like that stuff is genuinely interesting, and that's like the makings of good friendships. It's the makings of like an actual I say enriching, like I'm probably overusing the word, but you know, you can learn things from your players, presumably, or from ideas you get from these games is how I think of it.
So I would say it's not the weirdest tangent we've ever gone on. So you're totally fine there. And
We haven't even started talking about Turtle Wow yet.
I know.
It's gonna happen.
No, you don't understand. I don't even talk about the fact that I play it. So.
It's great.
I'm like I play it very casually though with a few friends.
Are you a PvP server or a PvE?
I think there's only one, isn't there?
There's
I mean, we
two.
oh yeah, there's two. We're on the PvE server, but we did the war mode.
Oh,
no.
okay. We're on
Yeah.
the newer one, the PvE.
Oh, okay.
We're on the
Okay.
PvP one that's been out for about a year.
Oh, okay. Wait.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. All right. I think we like started on that one and then there was like nobody on it, so we moved to the other one and just put on war mode.
Oh, that's fair. There's more people there now.
Yeah.
For what it's worth.
Gotcha.
Yes, California is indeed on fire. And I just talked to my insurance agent the other day, and apparently farmers have pulled out all policies in California because it costs them too much money. Incidentally, they pulled out of Florida too, so hope you don't have to pay homeowners insurance.
Yeah, I heard that.
Yeah, it's not great.
No.
All right, we don't need to be crap talking our states. You know, you don't like them, you leave them. That's why I left Oklahoma.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, we've got the Four Corners. Yeah, that's pretty fun.
The only thing I remember about going to Oklahoma was the groundhogs. They were like, no, not groundhogs. They were prairie dogs.
Prairie dogs.
There were prairie dogs everywhere. They were so cute.
There's a bajillion here too. I actually had a friend who
Really?
they were trying to get rid of a prairie dog mound to like change something in traffic, you know, put a road down or something. And he led a whole petition to like save the prairie dogs. And I was like, oh, that's cool. And I realized how annoying prairie dogs are. I was like,
Oh, I love them.
Yeah,
I love
they're-
them so much. I went to like, because, well, here it's like it's alligators, and like alligators are boring. They just sit there, they don't do anything.
Well, that's because
no,
you're
they
they
never
never until they
move.
do something atrocious.
they do something
They never-
when you wrestle them. That's what they're there
Okay.
I've
for.
seen them climb fences.
I'm sorry.
So
You
like
have to
if you're
wrestle 'em.
sober, they don't do anything.
That's
But
fair.
like, I mean, they just like sit there in the sun and like, I don't know. If you're lucky, they'll
Act like reptiles.
look at you, right? But
Yeah.
prairie dogs, oh, they were adorable. They were
They're
like
very
running
active.
around, like poking out their little holes. I love them.
And their little chirpy bark thing that they do.
Yeah.
No, Lacerator, I'm not going to LVO this year. I don't even know if I'm going to make it to Adepticon this year. Like, we traveled to all of those places last year, and it was really expensive. And every time I got home, I got sick. And I am not willing to do that and lose the first 4 months of this year to getting sick. So I hope you have a blast, and I hope you kick some butt. And I don't know, maybe take those lady custodies that were kicking butt earlier this year or last year.
I don't blame you. I've never not gotten sick from a con.
I typically haven't this often, but in 2024, I don't know. Like, I was
I've never
just
gotten sick from a
haunted.
con, and then this
Like-
last year I got sick from every con. It was weird.
Oh,
Ooh, what is
used to-
steampunk?
No.
Mm.
So steampunk is coal, right? Coal and water, which creates heat. You create the steam, it expands. It's like a train, you know, it's run off train. Diesel punk is a lot closer to World War II. Like if you think of what was that one we played for a little bit? Do you remember that was it was like if World War II kept going because they had discovered alien technology, like Roswell was real and the other stuff was real, and so the war extended. What was the name of that game?
You're not talking about Dust, are you?
Dust. Thank you. Dust is diesel punk.
Yeah, Dust super is. Yeah, that's fair. So it's pretty
So,
fun.
Yeah, I mean it's diesel engines, right? It's stuff that you're still running. There's no computers, there's no like modern technology, but it's older school, right? And so that's more of a diesel punk. In some ways, Mad Max is kind of diesel punk. But yeah, that's sort of the difference.
Yeah, kind of. There's no diesel in Mad Max. Everything's like clearly gas engine. But
Well, in the new ones, everything is gasoline, whereas in the original, everything was methane. That's why they had their pig farms, because they were farming methane.
that's right, the farting pigs. It on the new server, the Telebeam one. It is double XP right now too, and they have those
Oh,
cool
yeah.
tents you can put out, so it can be 4 times the XP to level up. I've already got my level 60 druid. Now I'm just working on my warrior. It's great. I love it.
I
love
too
it.
prefer druids. Not playing one this time, but I that's my favorite class.
What are you rocking right now?
I'm a girl, so I play a priest.
Okay, that's a take.
A priestess.
Are you doing that because? Well, are you a night elf?
No, I'm a human.
Oh, human. Okay.
Human priest,
Yeah.
okay.
Because I was gonna say in the
They gave-
original Warcraft lore, the night
Yeah.
elves, all the women were priests and all the men were druids. I think. I
Yeah.
got that right.
No, I play human if I can.
Yeah.
No, wait, I'm not a human this time. I don't know why I said that.
You're a high
I'm
elf,
like one
aren't
of
you?
I'm the other elf. Yeah, I'm the other elf.
The high elves. Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
not the blood elf. That one.
Okay, so I'm gonna take a quick moment to talk about why TWoW is so freaking fun and
Right.
awesome. One, they got rid of blood elves, which were stupid from the get-go, and they made them high elves, which made sense. Then they actually fixed the paladin class, so when you play right now, every single paladin you see is a tank, which is fine, whatever. But
So all right. So I was in an Ubers group, Upper Blackrock Spire group, and we had 2 warriors and 2 priests, and they were still looking for 2 tanks and 2 healers
Yes.
in the group. It's like, what is happening?
Yes.
Because the only tanks on Alliance side are just paladins now, with some druids. Like you almost never see a warrior. Like they're all just a bunch of fury damage monkeys.
I don't like to talk to people, so I have like 3 friends on there, and we just like 3 or 4 man everything and just
Yeah.
get good until we
Yes.
3-manned BRD like a couple days ago at like level 54-ish.
Oh wow.
I
Nice.
don't know.
All the way to the Emperor, huh?
Actually, we wiped on the dwarves, but
No,
Mandragora, no,
It was
I am
close.
not. I am not from. I'm sorry, I have to answer this. I'm not from
Yeah.
Oklahoma. I've never been from Oklahoma. I will never be from Oklahoma. I lived for 5 years of my life in Oklahoma, and then never again. And there's lots of reasons for that. I don't hate the people of Oklahoma, but I had horrible experiences there, so that's that. Originally, I'm actually from New York, but then I've lived most of my life in New Mexico. Not from Oklahoma. All right, now that's out of the way. Yes, BRD, good job, by the way. So you are a priest, and what are the other two then that are running?
we
You
had
gotta have
a
a tank.
paladin and a hunter.
Oh, hunters are pretty
Oh,
good.
okay.
Yeah, we had a
Yeah.
paladin and a hunter.
Yeah.
And yeah, also, I mean, sometimes we have a warrior that comes with us, but sometimes he doesn't. So we can't get through all of it without.
It can be a little tough. We're still working
Yeah.
on our little
I-
group.
Basically,
it's
you guys
actually,
need to just transfer now. That's
I
how it
was
needs
like
to go.
so out of WoW. I haven't played it for
Years?
since for years, yeah, because I
Yeah.
I never really played much of the WoW Classic that Blizzard had out.
Mhm.
But I mean, I'd played on like private servers before that because I really like vanilla WoW. I played it back when I was a teenager. Now you thought I was born in like 2000, which is wonderful for me. But I was like really into it as a teenager, and I played on Nostarius and
Oh
Light Smoke since
yeah.
then.
Oh,
But
wow.
yeah, I just had been out of it for years. I thought I was out of it, and then somebody's like, "Turtle WoW."
Yeah, that's exactly what happened to me. I left in Wrath
Mhm.
or before Wrath of the Lich King. I think I quit in the middle of
Yeah.
Burning Crusade because I had horrible burnout. I would do like some of the raids, and I was already working like 2 jobs, I think, at that point anyway. And then
Yeah.
playing WoW was just too much of a commitment. And Blizzard
Right.
just treats their player base awful, like constantly. And any horrible decision they can make, they're gonna do. And so I learned about Turtle WoW from someone else, and I was like, wait. There's a
Yeah.
there's a version of the game where the developers don't actively hate the player base. All right, let me give that a go.
And
By the way,
this
just a quick shout out to Flank, our paladin tank in our guild.
Yay! Hey Flank, how's it going, man?
it,
Was
it
wondering
might
if
give
were
you
painting.
it might give you an idea of how often I play if I say that I've been on there for like maybe a year and
Yeah,
I'm not 60 yet. So
that's fair. That's fair.
I'm very, very casual. I like just joined a guild like this week and was like, I don't play much.
I love it.
I, on the
Yeah.
other hand, started playing. We started playing about 2 weeks ago, and we both have 60s right now.
Yeah, I've lost a fair bit of sleep for it, and I got things I need to be doing, man. But it's just like
Yeah.
almost a trip down memory lane, especially since a bunch of my friends from Vanilla News, like are on there too. And so it's like I'm hanging out. It's like a high school reunion or something all the time, where I'm getting to hang out with people that I like and like have known for a long time, and like we have a reason to hang out together again. Even though we, there's certain connections you have through, say, Steam and Discord or whatever, and it's like, yeah, technically you could reach out to each other, but just having like that communal place to play, arguably what RPGs are, is a great way to like kind of reconnect.
Yeah,
Although,
for sure.
actually, one of the guys we played with a whole lot way back in original vanilla actually lives in town now. So we play with him now, but yeah, he actually lives in Albuquerque now. So
that's right. I met him on the internet.
That's how you meet all your friends.
I was just stating a fact. Apparently, if you roll a paladin, by default, you have to be a tank, apparently.
So, I mean, it's different than vanilla, where if you rolled a paladin, you're a healer.
Yeah.
Yep. Or you were
It's at least an improvement.
Well, you say that. Actually, I always played a healer. So I always played a paladin. But
yeah,
I always did holy paladin. Actually, always try to play healers in the games.
And I like
stabby
stab one.
I enjoy healing in WoW too. I also I played a lot of druid, so I actually really liked switch DPS. Like that was always my favorite role, was like healing and like druid DPS.
Yeah.
I didn't do the like weird druid stuff like no lifing, no Morgan for that stupid beat stick though.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna do that.
They took they made it different, didn't they?
Mhm.
For
Yeah,
this
they did.
version. Yeah. Right now we're trying to do we're trying to work up the capacity to do Dire Maul tribute runs so that we
Oh,
can get the real good beat stick for droids. I can't remember the name of it. But yeah.
I don't remember it. I
It's
just remember the crowd pummeler and then
Mhm.
Warden's staff for the bear. But
Warden staff is still pretty good. So
yeah.
yes. It's lovely. It's just been a great experience because like the things that are different have been fun to explore. And it really does seem like the developers for that care a lot about keeping a good community and trying to actually listen to players. So
All right,
Yeah,
so
they seem solid because every other every other server I've played on has had like some scandal where it's like, oh yeah, the devs were like selling gold the whole time. The devs were the RMT. And yeah,
oh my gosh.
it's just like every server has that stuff. So I like stopped playing it because I'm like, I just don't need this in my life, you know.
I mean, it's like we don't really need any of it in our life, do we? But here we are.
So one of the big things that I think is probably, I mean, maybe even more broadly interesting to the audience that we're in front of right now is the idea that I don't know if everybody's heard of World of Warcraft, right? I know that in the height of World of Warcraft, nary a game store was safe from it. I think by the time Wrath of the Lich King came out, like every game store owner I knew was just like, oh my God, like a third of our people don't even come in anymore because all they do is play Warcraft. And
Mhm.
then most of our players, when they come in, that's what they talk about. Like it had kind of taken over the cultural gamer mindset in game stores for a while. And so they'd gone through, and at one point, I think at their height, where they have like 14 million players, something like that. Which, if you think they're all paying $15 a month, I mean that's a lot of money
A lot
that
of
your
money.
company's making. But it's a huge slide. Like there's countries that don't have that as a population, and so like you kind of have this game that's this iconic monolith of what a shared universe online is. And so we kind of start off in the beginning, which is like the thing they originally created, and a few expansions down the road they just destroyed it all. Literally, it's called the Cataclysm. Immediately, Dungeons and Dragons copied it with fourth edition with their
Spell plague.
Spell Plague, where it actually destroyed the world, made everything all new again. Is very similar.
And then
And so
Warhammer.
yeah, and then Warhammer just destroyed their world and threw it away, and then created something entirely different. But you kind of have this idea where a bunch of people wanted to go back to the original world, and so Blizzard had made Classic. Like, in fact, we were at the BlizzCon. We only went to one BlizzCon, and we were at the one where they announced it. So that was pretty awesome. And also Muse was playing there, so that was pretty
So
cool
good.
too. And so it was this big deal. Oh, you can go back. You can kind of go back and play the version of the world that you played before. But everybody was like, we hate all of the design changes that this company has made. They did not like the design philosophy. And it's interesting because I think that there's a lot of very strong similarities between what kind of killed War Machine and what has driven Warcraft down. It's developers listening to a very small minority of very competitive players when most of your player base are just casual people that just want to have fun. And so you end up alienating a lot of your general players. And of course, what was it the end of Cataclysm? They kind of stopped posting their numbers of what their subscribers were. And you can see charts online if you guys are interested. It just went down and down and down. And so now everybody's like, look, hashtag no changes. Just recreate Classic. We don't want any of your ideas or new design philosophy in this game at all whatsoever. The players didn't trust the designers anymore. And so it's kind of interesting because this version we're playing, which is this fan run server, they've actually really impressively gone through and been adding loads and loads of content that are based heavily on like original developer notes, things that the original developers wanted to do back in the day, like general lore that the game had in Warcraft 3 and 2 and all that stuff. And so it's been interesting because you actually get to see, it's like that alternate universe of what if Blizzard had gone this other direction instead. And now there's a server where you're kind of seeing it. And so it's just fascinating that it's like, you know what I mean? It's everybody kind of goes, oh, I wonder, if only we could see that alternate universe where this happened instead. Well, this is kind of an example where you actually get to see it. So that's why it's been kind of capturing our imagination
Yeah.
lately.
And it's interesting to me because Blizzard has, I don't know if it was inspired by the success of Turtle Wow or if it was just the community crying out for like changes, but they have released Season of Discovery and put like their own changes into it. And like I think the reception to that was like really lukewarm. Like I don't
I
think
don't
the
like it at
reception to that
all.
was very good.
Well, and that's,
I yeah.
well, I was going to say that is Blizzard's current design philosophy that everybody didn't
Mhm.
want.
Yeah.
And they're like, what about this? And it's like, no, don't make changes. And you're right.
Yeah.
It was kind of interesting to see at first, and then they just kept going and going, and you're like, okay, yeah, nobody likes this, never mind. And
Yeah.
so you're right.
It was very strange because like I think a lot of people wanted to like it because I mean it was good that they were being experimental, but it just wasn't like the type of change that people wanted for it. They wanted change that was more in the spirit of classic, but like with the runes, they were making it more and more
Well,
play
like
like a
retail
MOBA
Warcraft.
almost. Yeah,
Yes.
like where you have a
Mhm.
loadout and you have to change your
Yeah.
loadout and you're not building your character to be like unique. And I don't know. I like the version of the game where you don't have dual spec and you have like, this is my character. They're not just a druid, but they are a balanced druid, which means that I am really good for this specific role, but I'm gonna suck. And like, if you make me heal, I'm gonna suck. Like, I don't just like get to switch because
Yeah.
that's my character's identity.
Mm.
And I really like that. But when they started adding things to make it look like a game where you have like loadouts and you're like making and you're like changing your character every time you go into a dungeon or PvP or something, and you can just do everything on one character and you can perform well in raids or in PvP or in five mans and everything. I think that sort of ruined it because each character felt less unique, and it's just like you're no longer a balanced druid, you're a druid,
Well, and then you started getting people's expectation of we need X type, and you better be that type if you want to be invited to this group. Your individuality doesn't matter.
Right.
So to really kind of loop this around, I guess even to tabletop, is when you think of a character class, right? You play a paladin or a druid or a rogue or a warrior or whatever. It's very similar to when you walk into something like Warhammer and you're like, oh, I'm a Tyranid player, or
Mhm.
oh, okay, I'm a guard player or a Space Marine player. It kind of is your interface with that world and with the game as a whole. And it's one of the things that I noticed. I don't know how many people know this. In the original version of Warcraft, there's literally one guy who designed all the classes, just him. And they never added, his name's Kevin Jordan, if anyone's interested to look up his interviews, but they didn't even give him any help until like the first expansion a couple of years later. Like this company is making like I think at their height, they're just from subscriptions alone, we're pulling in over 2 billion a year. And they couldn't bother to hire more than one guy to make what is arguably the most important. It's almost like the fulcrum upon which the game versus the player exists, right? That is your portal into the game. And so I think you see it in a lot of game design, tabletop war games, MMOs, whatever, anything that has an aspect that you latch onto. Well, it's kind of your identity and it's kind of your portal into the world. And I think a lot of game companies, and I know Blizzard really took, whenever they were designing Warcraft, took it like this. And I think that a lot of, I know War Machine fell into it. I know 40K is, and they're like, oh, you like playing this style? Oh, okay. Well, you just need to completely re-roll all those miniatures you painted, all that stuff you bought. I don't know, sell it, put it on a shelf, whatever. Really, you needed to be doing something else. Play a different faction. And you're like, but I don't identify with that. Like, I like the way this one feels. I still like the limitations. I don't like the way it plays. And they're like, well, I don't care. And it's like, you really need to focus more on it, because when a player steps into a game, whether it's Warhammer, whether it's Blizzard, whether it's whatever, I'm sure plenty of tabletop RPGs are that way. It's like you need to really put a lot of care and effort into making sure that a player can, that a player can really live within their character that they have. That's, usually pretty precious to them. I know a lot of people just play one faction and that's what they want. They like that faction. Whereas you would see a lot of competitive players, they would just trade an army. Oh, the new chapter approved came out. Okay, selling
Yep.
this army off, buying these other ones. Like they have no attachment at all. But I don't think that's representative of the average player, of most players. Whereas most players are like, I don't know, I like Tyranids. They're just cool. Like whatever it is about them, their aesthetic, it speaks to me. I just want them to be good. Like I don't want to play your other armies. I just want to play mine.
No, I hate changing that stuff all the time. Especially, I mean, meta chasing, you're never going to get rid of it necessarily. I don't think you see that in stuff like RPGs because there's not really like a win condition people are going for. I guess the most you'd see would be what? Like people trying to min-max stats?
Yeah.
Yes. Oh,
Yeah, there are definitely builds that people use. Now, I try to discourage this in my games by using a lot of randomness and character gen, but yeah, there's some meta, but it's nothing like in a competitive game like Warhammer. And I can totally see in a game like Warhammer, if you buy an army and you spend time painting your army and you spend time learning how to play your army, you're going to identify with that faction. You're not just going to want to switch factions. Like I don't even play Warhammer and I have like if I played Warhammer, I'd play this faction.
Yeah. Yeah, there's so much about it that's, you know what I mean, that ties into just sort of your aesthetic, right? You're like, no, I really identify with this faction of people or with this type of character or this whatever. I just want to play that. Can that just be good? Can I just play that and that's a good one instead of it just being, you know, what is it? You haven't had a new codex in like 11 years instead of that faction. You know,
Mhm.
it's like that you need to be looking at all of the factions and have it, whereas you'll see a lot of them. I know in was it War Machine and a few others, they would look at, well, what are the tournament standings? Well, if this faction is winning in tournaments, well, then we don't need to fix it. And it's like, as a Signar player, it's like, well, yeah, you would have the Signar Warcasters are good, and your entire army were made up of mercenaries because everything else in the faction sucked. It doesn't mean that faction is fine. It means there are problems. You need to fix it just because you're doing well in tournaments. And I know with Warcraft, um, Kevin Jordan knew that the Paladin class was just terrible, but he's like, well, but they were being invited. And so whenever they were going through and doing class fixes, like I think it was like a year and a half into the game or whatever, Paladins are kind of the last because they were still being invited to raids. It's like, well,
Mhm.
yeah, if you have one utility you provide that everyone likes, it doesn't mean you're enjoying playing the class. It just means
Right.
everyone else enjoys this one, like Blessing of Kings or what, you
Yeah.
know, these things that you have. It doesn't mean that you're enjoying it, but they're like, well, but they were being invited. And it's like, that's a terrible metric to
Well,
base
and
it on.
that's where you have to worry about. And I wanted to kind of address Jerry's point here about, you know, he doesn't play like online games for that, but all this video game stuff leaking into RPGs is and spoiling them. I definitely see that on the wargaming front because the recreation and the proliferation of apps have really become a major thing for tracking armies, tracking points, tracking your tournament stuff,
Oh, yeah.
keeping score, reporting your winnings and all that. I don't know. I think D&D made some sort of subscription-based thing, but I don't know. Have you seen like a lot of RPGs go like try to push more of an app base, like getting people back on their phones during games?
Yeah, so I think it's completely a different world in this aspect just because while yeah, you do have the D&D Beyond stuff, like I don't think any of my players have a D&D Beyond subscription. We use like 2014 5e. And the thing is, because every table is like much more insular than in a war game where like you have this big meta and everybody's competing against each other. But like in RPGs, every table is its own unique ecosystem. Like you're not gonna get the big sweeping changes because like yeah, wizards can change whatever they want, but like is every table gonna adopt those changes? Sure, we don't. Like lots of people still play AD&D and
Yes.
I
We were
know
just talking
people.
about that actually before the show.
Yeah, I know people who play AD&D like it was in the 70s. They play in real life, they'll play online, and like do they do they give two shits what Wizard says? No.
Which,
Well,
by
and I
the way,
wonder
did
if
you ever
that.
watch?
Go ahead.
I was
Oh,
gonna
you're
say,
gonna
did
ask
you
about
ever watch
community.
the Community episode for D&D?
Yeah.
Oh my
Yeah.
God. I just love Chevy Chase yelling, I won at D&D and it was advanced.
Yeah.
That's what I think of whenever I hear advanced or AD&D.
Yeah.
But do you find that it's pretty common for people who play the RPGs, just because there's no pressure to accept new modernized rules, to just sort of keep what they've been doing?
I don't really, I'm not sure if I have like I have I think 14 players right now and all my games combined because that's like just the Godstein. I don't think any of them keep up with Wizards. Maybe like one or two of them do. I'm
Yeah.
not really sure. But I've never felt pressure to keep up with like because I know they just released a new edition, but I haven't had a single player suggest that we switch to it.
There's a new
And all I
edition
have
of- Oh.
yeah, there's a new edition. There's
Oh,
like totally a new edition. Yeah.
and that's a direction I mean, I feel like, and I don't know if you guys feel this way, but I know Disembodied Voice does, but it's like, for these kinds of hobbies, I feel like they take up enough time just knowing the basics and like painting up your armies and, getting decent, at least to competent at playing or whatever. But the rate at which things change and rules change and editions change, I personally find very exhausting. And I understand that there's sort of like a business, I don't agree with it, but I understand that there's a business element where there's these bean counters out there saying, oh, you need to frankly exploit your player base and your customer base to renew money from them, which is why you have a D&D Beyond subscription being pushed, which is why you have Warhammer,
I mean,
the Warhammer app and all that.
To bring it around in a way, I mean, I do blame Blizzard for it. The
Yeah.
moment World of Warcraft got big and everybody said, wait a minute, people pay a subscription? You mean you're getting money every single month? Like every game company, be that computer or tabletop, just started like racking their brains trying to figure out how they could.
Now you've
How do we
got
get a
Adobe
monthly
doing it
income?
with you got Microsoft doing it.
Oh yeah. And it's like, oh my God, they're kind of pushing it. But I remember reading an article from one of the designers of D&D whenever the Spell Plague, the 3.5 came out. 3.5? 4.0.
I thought it was
Whenever
4.
4.0, I think. Whenever that came out, but they had used the phrase. I remember reading that and going, that's where you said the quiet part out loud. But they actually used the phrase, we had to reset the knowledge base so that we could sell all of the core books again. And I thought, you're not supposed to tell your customers that. That's the crappy stuff you don't tell the public. Like, you're just sitting there saying it in an interview, and it's something about gamers. I don't know what it is. I've grown up with gamers like forever. I mean, since like the late 80s. And it's like, I don't know, there's something about it where if they understand the insider baseball, somehow they feel fine going along with it because they have that little bit of knowledge where they're like, yeah, but I'm in the know. It's like, who cares if you're in the know? They're still exploiting you. Stop it. Knock it off. Stop putting up with it.
Yeah. It's true.
Everyone did try to sell subs after World of Warcraft. And I think they kind of came into like an issue where like a lot of video games at least were failing after that, trying to release on the same sub model because people had so much invested in World of Warcraft already. And when you're paying like a monthly sub to play a game, you're not going to pay like a bunch of them. You're going to like do one.
See if it really knocks your socks off. And none of them did. A ton of them were just WoW clones, and they all copied like the crappy stuff and didn't they still miss the magic of what kind of is originally there. It's why, these Turtle WoW servers are usually just playing the original game, because that magic is still there and people really have not found a way to like revivify it. And I think it's just all the wrong people looking at it. They're not really actual creative people. They're just, I don't know, people who want to ape it.
I'm really impressed.
Well,
I'm really impressed. This is one of the first projects I've seen where the people behind it, and it's fan driven, but the people behind it actually kind of understand the magic. And you definitely, I mean, with WoW Classic, they just went back to what they did before, right? Like they didn't have to understand it to copy it. Whereas these guys are moving forward and it really legitimately feels fresh again. And I mean fresh in a way where you're like, I could have seen this back in 2005. Like this wouldn't have felt out of place at all. And
Yeah.
so it's just really neat.
Yeah.
Although I guess they're redoing the game with the Unreal Engine to
I don't
have
know.
like the higher level graphics. So we'll see.
Yeah. That's
You're
a
not
wait for me.
okay.
I don't
I'm
know.
gonna
I
answer.
don't know.
Andrew's
I don't play. I mean, they straight up lose me as a person who would play Warhammer and stuff like that because of how often they cycle through rules and things like that. Because I can't be bothered.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, at a certain point. So, someone in chat pointed out that it is not actually a new edition. It's just D&D 2024. They were kind of, it was really weird. Like, people didn't know what to call it because it wasn't 6e and it wasn't 5.5. It was just like D&D 2024.
Yep. And then they do that
So, I
naming
don't know.
convention. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But I mean, it really does seem like a way to reset and sell new books because what happened was 5e got too bloated. They're like, we released like so many books for 5e, and it's like there's so many things here. We want to change a couple little things. So let's just release new books.
I'm going to answer Andrew's questions just real quick here because he was asking about why I'm not playing Mark IV, which is the new edition of War Machine. I'm assuming it's for that same reason because there are literally weekly updates to the app. I'm not saying it shifts the rules every time, but the amount of change, the rate of change for that game ends up being kind of a lot to keep up with. That would be my first guess. And then the second one would probably be that you don't like the minis. I don't know. And to point to support what you guys were talking about, Last Raider says, I hate that it's very money driven. No matter how good the state of the game is, it's all on a timer depending on the profits. Now, I think that is I think that's a very common mindset among the people who run those companies. I think they're dumb because I'm pretty sure you could probably just make a stable game that is functional and doesn't need a lot of changes, and you'd actually have a stable player base. And I think Turtle WoW proves that. I think Battletech proves that. I think one-page rules is beginning to show that you don't need 1,000 changes all of the time. In fact, it's exhausting and frankly kind of a jerk thing to do your player base.
Yeah.
Exhausting is the phrase for it, I think. I remember, I guess War Machine really took it to the farthest, to the most extreme with their, what was that called? The, where they're constantly testing.
CID, Community Integrated Development.
Yes. Oh my God. Even our hardcore players locally are just like, I'm out.
Burned
like
out.
I will just, when they're done figuring it out, I'll play again, because they were just like, no, you're all involved in the play testing and so many. And it's like, there are so many nuances to this game, right? Because there's the game you play, which is, oh, this is how you move. This is how you shoot. This is how you attack some, this is how you, whatever. Then there's the, I don't know what you would call it. It's not the meta game. It's like the nuance game where you're like, yeah, you would think, but when you add this buff in this situation and do this, now you've created a perfect storm where now this unit does this whole different thing. And you've got to kind of learn all these little contextual bits of gameplay, right? Like you think of the Winter Guard. You're like, oh, those are just average foot soldiers. And you're like,
Yep.
Sure, but then when you put like Iron Flesh on them and then they bob and weave, suddenly they're the dodgiest characters are actually an incredible tar pit. The only way you can hurt them is by drifting, blast templates over them. And it's like, that's not at all what that unit does when you look at it. And you have to learn all those little bits of nuance play. And when you're constantly changing all the special rules, now nobody knows what any of that is. They're just like, I don't remember what these guys do. There's like 100 of these rules and I don't remember which one this is. And it just gets frustrating for a player base. But a company looks at it from a whole different perspective because they're like, yeah, we're the developers and everyone's interested in game development. It's like, you guys are, and some people are, but most players are just trying to play a game and you're frustrating them with constant slight changes everywhere.
Yeah, constant tweaks. But I mean, they have found the tournament players to be a very profitable audience. So that's the way that's going. Something like D&D, I don't know.
I argue that the casual player brings in way more money than the tournament
over
player.
a long time frame.
No,
but you
over
think
the
of
same year, the same 365 days, I would say, because there are far more. I mean, it's just at that point, it's economy of scale, right? Because the really hardcore play. All right, give you an idea. Luis is going to LVO. How many other people in our game store are going to LVO?
Several.
The rest of them are casual. And even if it's several, how many of them in Albuquerque are going to LVO versus how many people in Albuquerque are buying Warhammer boxes of models.
Sure,
And
fewer
so
are going to
most of the money
LVO
is
than
that.
are, yeah.
And so even if those guys are all in, they still can't make up for the number, like the complete volume of purchases that everyone else is representing. And so it's like, yeah, they're the louder ones, which in a way makes them easier to accommodate. You're like, oh, they're telling me what they want. The casual people are just playing the game, and when it gets annoying, they just walk away. So we don't know what the hell they want, but we know what these loudmouths want. You know what I mean? Like, and so it's easier to follow them, but you also have to keep in mind, you should always listen to the player, but you shouldn't always do what they say. Because again, you know, if you what is it, players, you know, if you put it in the hands of the players, they'll always optimize the fun out of everything.
So, no, I think you're completely right. I think the issue that Wizards ran into with D&D was that they ended up being hugely popular all of a sudden in 2020 for reasons I think we all understand, because in 2020 everybody had nothing to do and an internet connection, and well, so they ended up selling a ton of source books, and a lot of people gave Wizards a lot of money then. And then after that, a lot of the new players either quit or played less. And so you had a player base that was reasonable size that exploded one year and then like started dwindling from then. And Wizards was like left with the like the shareholders wanted it to keep growing, and they're like, okay, we have to monetize this, because D&D is actually a really hard brand to monetize anyway, because like it's not models, you don't have tournaments. I mean, you do, but like it's not, no one
quite
does
the
them.
same.
So yeah. So I mean, it's a real challenge to figure out how to monetize something like that. So that's kind of why they went with, okay, the D&D Beyond subscription model. But like even that, like people are like, we're not paying a monthly fee to play D&D. We don't need that. We need our imaginations, which is totally true, because I mean, RPGs are just incredibly hard to monetize. You can sell source books, you can sell like dice, but then like what else do players need? And see, the thing with source books with like Dungeons and Dragons and other RPGs is every player is not necessarily going to buy a source book. Like usually it's the DM will buy a source book and then share it with the players, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, you end up like having a lot of people interested in them, but like not a lot of people spending money on RPGs. So because of that, it's just incredibly hard to make money in the space. And even if you're like Wizards and own like a the big brand, like I mean, they struggle with making money with it too, it seems, because they have to resort to like more and more like microtransactions, really, because what they're doing is they're coming out with like a virtual tabletop, and they're like selling it looks like, and they haven't released their exact plan on how they're going to make this profitable, but it does certainly seem like they're going to be charging for like digital minis, which is like,
What? Oh wow.
Yeah, no, they are,
Understand.
because why I see it. I say it seems that way because one of the things is like with their backers package where you can like pay for it. They're like, you'll get this free gold dragon mini. I'm like, oh, so right. I see we're gonna be charging for digital minis now. Like maybe some people will pay for those. I'm not
If
using
I could
that.
push back a little bit, I actually
Sure.
would point out that is exactly, I mean, Blizzard's been successful at doing it for 10 years. I mean, that's like buying a vanity pet, right? And Warcraft, it doesn't do anything, or you buy a weird mount or something like that. Like it's the same type of digital transaction. I bet they do make a fair amount on it.
But that is video gameizing the RPG, right? You are changing your audience.
Right. You're
for sure.
Because I don't know like if the RPG audience, if the D&D audience is necessarily going to move over to a high-tech virtual tabletop with like microtransactions, because part of like the magic in playing these games is that they rely heavily on imagination, which the more you have things programmed in, the more you have parameters to what you can and can't do. That's like a thing like games that rely heavily on like battle maps and stuff and like a lot of prep, they're like, well, sorry, you can't go to the castle yet because I don't have a map for that. Which is why I like in moving to theater of the mind, right?
Yeah,
Because
yeah.
like, I mean, it's just it's such an imagination heavy thing that like going from there where you have no borders really and you can kind of do whatever you want, and adjudicate the game like that, like going from that to something much more structured like a VTT, and I'm not like trying to shit on VTTs, it's just the more high tech and the more programmed in things are, the more that removes the freedom from the game, I think.
Well, including a degree of player's agency, which does fundamentally like can undercut like how creative you can even be and how much you're really exploring what the core of an RPG concept is. It's like, well, can I do this? It's like, well, the programming says no. That would make sense. It'd be cool if you could do that, but literally I have to tell you no now because I have no way of accommodating that request.
Right.
It's like,
Because,
like, now you-
unfortunately, I mean, it's kind of the consumer who's pushing things that way also. Because a lot of people just don't take the time to be in person, or they don't have the means to be in person. Everything kind of moved digital communally. And so for D&D, where they had the books before, now they can get away with just moving things digitally because that's what people do.
I mean, you're not wrong.
Does anybody know what Patty's talking about here? Don't forget they also aligned with a gambling company.
Yeah, there was a company, I can't remember, they were doing a deal with Patty. What is the name of the company? Because I vaguely remember this. It's a it was in the news recently. It's a company that does slot machines. I don't remember what the company's called.
So like WotC acquired them or made a deal with them?
I think it's a deal. I don't think anyone acquired anything. I don't remember exactly. But yeah, I mean, it does seem like it seems extremely likely that they're going to be doing like digital loot boxes or something, which is not the game I play,
No.
Now I agree with, go ahead. Sorry.
Oh no, well I was going to say like there's a certain tactileness, you know what I mean, that we exist in. I noticed that so everybody's online, right? And there's two phrases that you always ask, right? That I've noticed the world makes a lot more sense when you ask two things. One, what is its telos, which means what is something for? It's good, it's bad. Well, good at what? Bad at what? You know. The other thing is the phrase as compared to what? You know. And so when you look at something, you're like, oh, I don't like this. Okay, well, as compared to what? What's the alternative? You know, what else is out there that you can compare it to? And so, yeah, you look at a virtual tabletop and you're like, well, you know, you have friends or family that don't live nearby but you want to play D&D with them. And so what are the options, right? And so you have this and it's like, okay, well, this is kind of nice to have. Is it ideal? No, right? Like nothing, you know, in the video gaming world, you'd call it a couch co-op, right? Nothing beats sitting on the couch with your friends, like playing GoldenEye and talking crap, right? You're there. Everything's way more spontaneous. The language barrier is nil. You have every form of, you know, communication at your fingertips, down to, you know, punching your opponent in the arm if they do some sort of a dick move, right? But it's like, okay, well, you have the virtual tabletop and maybe you're stuck with it. Okay, well, let's make the best one we can, right? And you're right, it has limitations. By virtue of it existing at all, there's a lot of limitations. You're like, okay, well, I guess that's what we got, but what's it for, right? Is it to just kind of close that gap of like, well, it's either this or we just don't play D&D together? Well, then it's great. But if it's like, well, let's do this and we live in the same town together, then it's like, what the hell are you doing?
And
like,
that seems to be what a lot of people are moving towards, is like, we're in the same town. Let's just play online, because then we don't have to set up a time where we can all meet in person and put out things. And it seems to be moving that way.
And when you get there,
and I feel so much.
What are you guys doing?
I feel so much less bad about flaking on you when I inevitably don't wake up in time. Or there's. I mean, those are creating bad social habits, though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Generationally.
And I'm totally a proponent of D&D in person. I think that's actually the best way to play for sure. But I'm also like, I think D&D can be great online. I'm a huge proponent of playing D&D online just because I mean it's a great way to keep in touch with friends. Like it's more immersive. It's more of a true like experience where you're making something that combines your personalities. If you're playing online, like it's more of an immersive experience and stuff than like something like Warcraft or another online game is, just because you're creating something together that's like a weird amalgamation of your personalities. But I mean,
Sure.
also like I even like VTTs, but I like them mostly as a way to keep information organized. I think Discord and a bare bones VTT is like the way to play, just because I like using folders to have like descriptions and handouts of things, just so we have like an organization structure.
Mhm.
But I mean, the more immersive, like the more what's the high graphics fidelity, the big like basically video game adaptations, like I can't even get on board with that. I think it's silly because first of all, like when players are looking at a map or when they're looking at something, it limits their imagination because they're like, okay, so this is where we are. And like, nah, it's the best picture I could find, but it's not. Like I tell people sometimes, like, oh no, this is just a vibe picture, right? Like this is
A
the
what
vibe. This is
picture?
exact
A
a
vibe.
vibe.
Oh,
Here's the word I
okay.
use. Yeah. I'm like, that's a
Give
vibe
me
picture.
the idea of the
Well,
character.
yeah.
But like I've noticed when you give them like visuals, especially if they're like video game like visuals, they'll be like, this is literally what's there, and they won't use their imaginations, right?
In a way, it depends on who you're talking to, because what you're describing is also in the film industry, and I think the video game industry as well. It's called a look Bible. And so
Okay.
like it's sort of these
Parameters.
almost the way you would think of a gesture drawing, right? You're like, no, this isn't literally what it is, but these are kind of the colors and
Yeah.
textures we're looking for. And like, yeah, this is sort of the rough shape language of what this castle looks like. It's not literally this castle. It kind of
Yeah.
has this feel, right? That's why it's a vibe picture. There are some people that that when you give that to them, they go, oh, right, got it. And it's no problem at all. And for other people that are a little more literally minded, it's hard for them to get over, okay, well, on that castle, there's like a little parapet there. Can I go into that? And you're like, no, look, that doesn't exist. All right. It's just like, it's not literally that castle. You know?
Yeah. It seems to happen. I don't know. But
And so again, it goes to that question though, right? Like it kind of readdresses where it's like, well, as compared to what? And it's like, oh, in fact, where's it? I had this. There we go. Where he's, Wick TV. I agree with him because he says no D&D is better than bad D&D, and it's the question as compared to what, right? Because D&D takes time, and if it's like bad D&D, and you're sitting there going, what is it? You'll see it in movies where I'm trying to remember what movie it is. I think it's Cabin in the Woods, where he's just like, oh, what do you want this? Do you want this thing here? Do you want this whatever? And he's like, more than anything, I just want this conversation to end. And it's like in bad D&D, I can very much see like, is tonight over yet? Is the game over yet? Can I go home now? And that's bad D&D, which is worse than no D&D at all. At that point,
yeah.
you're like, God, I could have done anything better tonight. Like, oh, what a wasted evening. I agree with Wick TV on that for sure.
Totally. 100%. I've definitely been in games. I probably run games that were just lackluster. Where I'm like, man, I'd rather be anywhere else right now.
I don't believe that's ever
why.
happened.
Oof. Yeah.
No.
Your guests on our show, all of your games are probably great.
Oh, yeah, 10 out of 10.
We only invite the best.
Well, I mean, I try to limit that. I don't like to hold people hostage if they don't want to be there. That's something I feel very strongly about. So I have like 14 players in my games. Like I said, we play 4 times a week, but like the attendance policy is normally, okay, if you can only come to one of these per week, you have priority there. But other than that, if there's like an open spot, like jump in if you want to be there, even if you don't normally come on this time of week. And if you don't want to be there for whatever reason, you don't owe anybody an explanation. You don't even have to tell me you're not going to be there. Just don't show up. It's fine. It's not a big deal. And we play with those rules. And we normally have 5 or 6 people per game.
Okay.
Sometimes it's not the same 5 or 6, but that's okay.
Well, how does that work with keeping the fog of war between players, though?
So they'll just play different characters if they're like coming there, but
Oh.
also like a lot of the fog of war happens during downtime. Like people don't necessarily need to know what other players are doing during downtime. Sometimes they do, sometimes they lie to each other about it. Sometimes like, you know, we don't know like what crime the rogue is committing during downtime, right? So because like I said, it moves at the speed of like the real world. Like right now in my game world, it is January 8th. 2025. So
So what you're saying is the party will go into a situation and the captain of the guard will talk to him and the rogue will be like, actually I shouldn't be here right now. I need to go. And everyone's like, what? Why? It's like, too late. He's like, oh crap. I can't be here. I can't explain.
Oh man, the rogue today stole so much gold from this random NPC. And we're like, oh, everyone's stunned because like the rogue player, she's too good to play a rogue. Like she's too nice to play a rogue and she'll never want to do crime and stuff. And she's really like a paladin personality trying to play a rogue. And everyone's like, wow, we can't believe you still. She's like, yeah, all right, let's share it. They're like, wait, what? You're gonna share all that gold? And she's like, yeah.
Good on her going against type. I think that's one of the fun things about it. I mean, like you mentioned on Turtle Wow, you usually play a human. I usually play a human too. I'm like that boring player. I'm like, what? I like being a human. It's fine. But
Human on Alliance, orc on Horde.
Yeah, there you go. Except I never play a orc because orcs are horde or filthy evil creatures.
Dude, they're so much closer to dungeons though.
You can do them on Alliance.
They're closer to every dungeon.
Every
dungeon except Dead Mines.
Blackrock.
Except Dead Mines.
Yeah, they have Kargath.
Kargath isn't closer than Thorium Point.
Yeah, so I mean, until you get
Plus you gotta fly.
Dead Mines and Blackrock
Kargath
Mountain.
From?
Like, I don't know. You just set your herc there. It's fine.
So Blackrock Mountain, which is where Blackrock Depths, Lower Blackrock Spire, Upper Blackrock Spire, Molten Core, and Blackwing Layer are at.
Yeah, but from 1 to 60, like before you hit Blackrock Mountain, Alliance are closer to every dungeon. I'm sorry, Horde are closer to every dungeon, but Dead Mines.
Especially Scarlet Monastery.
Oh yeah, that run is fun. Yeah.
Yep.
Although we've got the Stormwind Vaults now, and
I haven't been there yet.
Neither have I. It looks scary. I have been to Hate Forge Quarry.
Yeah, I went to that one too.
Yeah.
We had a World Purple drop there the other day.
Nice.
Yeah, I forget what it was called. It was like the monocle. Nice. It sold for like 4 gold. It was cheap. It's so sad.
So our big call to action for everybody in the audience tonight is log into Turtle Wow, play Horde, because we need more Horde on Telebeam so that there can be a balanced PvP.
Oh yeah, we need more battlegrounds. It's been hard getting those.
Yes.
Need to go kill things. It's fun.
Oh, you said you're a druid, right? So you play a lot of Warsong Gulch because that's the most fun thing.
I hate it. You
hate it, Warsong Gulch? But like as a druid though, it's like the best
everyone looked at you and you're like, what? And they're like, you have the job. You were born into it. I'm like, but I suck at it. And they're like, but it's you're a druid, go.
I stopped doing it. Like I was so bad at it.
I like Darathi Basin. I want to try the new one. And of course, I always liked Altrek Valley. And I really liked Ashran when it came out. That was one of the few I actually liked. But
I've enjoyed Darathi Basin as a priest for one reason, and we all know what that is. Mind control off the cliff.
Mind control people.
Mind control off the cliff. Yeah. Stand by the lumber mill.
Yep.
Okay, Paul, I didn't make you change. I just ridiculed you for what you were doing. It's different. It's how you encourage your friends gently. Can you make level 19 twinks? Good luck finding the gear online. It is a small server, which has been kind of nice. It feels so much like original WoW.
I mean, twinking's so much easier because you can stop XP, so
you can't
Yeah, well, so getting the battlegrounds to pop up is the hardest, right? Because there are some twinks out there, but we just need the server's growing. It's a growing server, so just keep it growing and we'll be pretty good.
Indeed. We'll get there. Gosh, this has been such a fun conversation. I kind of wanted to keep going. I wanted to get your tips on I've DM'd a couple of times in the past, and my personality type and the way I think, it's really hard for me to like just let players do what they want. Even though like as a normal like interacting person, I'm always like, I don't know, do what you want. But when I have my game, I'm like, no, you need to go here because this is the thing I want to show you. Which I think is like on rails, right? So how do you keep people from getting on rail? Like, I don't know, be a better DM would be the obvious answer. But what else do you do to not put your players on rails for their game?
Although I would argue real quick though, some players do want that. They want the ride. They're like, what have you got prepared? I'm ready to go.
I have a DM philosophy that's like somewhat counter to what I think a lot of people do.
Yeah.
So I am very much a proponent of I sometimes hashtag no prep, but like I don't mean no prep. I mean I don't prep for sessions, I prep for the campaign. I try to know what is at certain places or at least have a vague idea. And then when the players tell me they want to go there, I'm like, I know it's there. I'm just gonna like figure it out as they're going there, you know. I use quite a lot of random rolls. Sometimes I like to prepare like dungeons and places. I enjoy writing dungeons. I think that's fun. But really, I don't prepare stories. I don't prepare like BBEGs. I think that's kind of, I don't know, waste of my time.
Real
Instead,
quick, what is a BBEG?
sorry, it's like a oh, I actually hate the term. I can't believe I used it. That's so cringe. So it's like big bad evil guy. It's like the big bad of the campaign. I don't even prepare that.
Okay.
Huh, I've never
So
heard that. It's kind of
yeah,
entertaining.
it's super lame. But what I do, so like a lot of the players actually challenge each other just because they have like the diplomacy game going above the table, right? Um, but I usually do a lot of it on the fly because the thing is, if you put a lot of prep work into an area, then you're gonna want to railroad your players to that area, right? You're gonna want them to go there and see that area. If you put a lot of prep into the story, then you're going to want your players to do that story and it's going to tempt you to railroad. But instead, really, I at first will give them a few quests, like kind of if they're not doing anything, I'll start like, you know, rolling up quest seeds or something and giving them a quest. Like today, the entire session came from one guy was pit fighting in his downtime and I rolled a random event to happen then because I think there was like a 30% chance of that. And the random event was that a guy was going to come ask him to start throwing matches so that he could bet against him and he was going to pay him part of that bet. And I was like, okay, I can make that work because the players were just kind of like, we don't know what we want to do today. There are some dungeons around. We're trying to grow our church because they started a cult, right? And so, you know,
Naturally.
I had the guy up here just be like, hey, you want to throw some matches? And so they ended up going to a fighting ring and committing some minor crime. And yeah. But like basically what I think less prep actually makes your players freer to do things.
Probably.
And I think there is a temptation among newer DMs to ignore random tables and basically just try to write everything yourself.
Yeah.
But because people will say that like random tables don't make you aren't creative, they're just kind of like nobody likes procedurally generated things, which is true in video games. Procedurally generated video games are lame. You want video games that are generated by a human brain a lot of times.
Yes.
But that's not the same in RPGs because you have something different in RPGs called abductive reasoning. So if you roll a random event in an RPG, it's not like it's going to just be a completely random encounter that has no connection to the world. Because I use the example a lot of times, you could roll like 1d4 wolves. But I mean, you can bring into the campaign, like, what are these wolves doing? Is one of them hurt? Are they hunting? Are they starving? Are they like friendly? You know, maybe someone tames the wolves. You don't know. And like maybe they belong to, maybe you have like werewolves nearby and suddenly this encounter makes a lot more sense. You can use the fact like there was this place, I kept rolling cats one time. I don't know why. I rolled like a tiger and a lion and like a panther. I kept rolling cats, like weird cats. So it just sort of became like that was part of the world. Like there are a lot of cats here. And like they're like, okay, well, there must be like a town of like cat people around, you know? So you can like,
And you're like,
with,
yes, of course.
right, right.
I planned that the
So,
whole time.
Yeah.
well, exactly. Um, so I mean, it's like, that's the thing that's different a lot of times about RPGs and video games is you can reason out from random tables, like first of all why things are there so that it doesn't feel random at all, it feels like part of the world. And second of all, it helps spur your imagination. Like if you just ask somebody, think of a random encounter, like right now, Miranda, what's a random encounter? Just think of an encounter.
Knowles.
It's really hard. You can't do it, right? But like if I say, think of a random encounter that involves a toad and a wizard, like you can do that. That's a lot easier.
Oh yeah,
Your
you're given some
imagination's going
parameters
crazy
to work with.
because
You're
you have
problem solving.
parameters. Yeah,
Mhm.
So
because limitations make you more creative.
so there's
To a point.
a it's kind of a similar thing, but there's a theory by a guy named Sergei Eisenstein, and it's the Eisenstein's montage theory. It's like they teach you that in film school. But montage theory is that there's you present a series of images, the juxtaposition of which move the mind forward in the viewer, or I'm sorry, move the story forward in the mind of the viewer. And so what it is you can show a picture of a car, and then you show a picture of a guy on a bicycle, and then you show like, you know, another picture of a car, and then you show like the bicycle laying on the ground, and everybody goes, oh my god, the car hit the guy on the bike. And you're like, no, those are just 3 images, you know what I mean? Like that,
Right.
nothing happened, but your mind will stitch them together in a way that makes a narrative sense to you. And so yeah, bringing up random cards, I know that, I mean, there's even been Dungeon Master tools that are like card decks that are kind of random or kind of like story beats, like, okay, this and this, go, you know. It's yes, the elements are random, but the story you create out of it absolutely is not. Like there's a lot more to it that's not random. All that was some kindling to start the fire.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's something that doesn't happen in video games, because if you have a procedurally generated video game, a lot of times it doesn't make sense. And you don't really, your brain's not like adjusted to fill in context within a video game, right? As much as it is like with an RPG. I'm not sure if that made sense, but I think you get what I mean.
Yeah.
Well, you can't program things fast
Right.
enough to change that game on the fly. Like
Right.
There's just a certain set number of assets and animations that they have and interactions that are programmed in with them, and that's that, right? The room, maybe when you see it you can come up with something in your mind, but that's not what's in the game. And so
Right.
yeah, I think that's what you're describing.
Exactly. And that's why RPGs are special, is they don't have the boundaries of programming. And so when you prep something, when you prep a story for an RPG, when you prep a path, you are introducing those bounds and thus removing what makes it truly special. So instead, I believe you should prep the world and just figure out what's around, how things are in turmoil, you know. And you know, you may not know what's out in the fields yet, what's out in the forest. You don't need to know what's out in the forest. You can figure out what's out in the forest when the players go to the forest. You roll a few things, it's like, oh, okay. So it looks like you see a strange hut in the middle of the forest. There's an old lady outside the hut. You know, you get like a hag
You
encounter.
automatically know she's a witch.
You know, yeah, exactly. And so stuff like that, you can sort of prep on the fly. You can figure out what it is when the players go there. It's and I'm not saying like your whole game should be a series of random rolls. It's cool to make things. It's cool to write things, but like the problem is the more you do that, the more it becomes a pre-written adventure and the players already have the outcome set. Like, you know how the game's going to end when it starts. Then the less it's an RPG and the more it's a video game.
How many assets do you find yourself using visually? I mean, obviously, if you're doing this a lot digitally, do you find yourself finding a lot of vibe pictures to bring up for people?
Sometimes more than others. It depends. Like, okay, like sometimes we use maps, sometimes we don't. Like, it really depends. I'm not really much of a visual person in games.
Okay.
We use art of characters. I'll get art of monsters. or
Do you ever use
sometimes
tools
vibe
like
art. Yeah.
do you ever use tools like Midjourney or anything like that to kind of just generate vibe pictures?
Sometimes. If I can't find anything, sometimes I will. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm a kind of iffy on AI art. I feel like I don't know. I don't have a problem with people using it in their personal games if they're not making money from it, you know? Um, Sometimes though, I like to use things that like were made with purpose, but occasionally I will. Like I know I have players that use it for their character art, but
Yeah. Yeah. It's probably pretty
yeah.
common anymore.
I think so. Sometimes I have no idea.
JMax says, I recently ran a test session of the game I'm creating completely off random tables, and it was honestly one of the most fun tests we had to date. There's a lot of intuition that comes naturally from the roles. A lot of intuition, huh? Oh, interesting. And thank you again for the super chat, JMac. There's a lot of intuition that comes naturally from the roles. So that's to say that the design seemed to accommodate even an unknown participant, like a rando making roles.
It really feels that way sometimes. And can I just say, JMac is like, he's super awesome because he actually debated this with me. I was on a debate channel, Quick TV, who is also in your chat.
Hey.
He runs a debate channel. It's usually politics, but sometimes he does
cool.
like RPG debates because he also really likes RPGs. And I debated JMac on this, like on the usefulness of random tables for adventures, like random tables for like kind of a sandbox versus pre-written campaigns. And we were actually on the opposite side of the debate. And I don't want to say I converted him because I feel like that is too
Uh-oh,
I
it's already
didn't want to
starting.
put words in his mouth. All right. Like maybe who do I think
You're
won in
saying-
that debate? Ruben, I won 100%. Of course, J-Mac's gonna say the opposite, but that's okay.
But you feel you
Now,
brought
to
up
be
good
fair,
points.
to
Or
be
did.
fair, just because you won a debate does not mean you changed anyone's mind.
I don't know.
There are
I
those
don't know.
those
I don't know.
elements
I,
too.
I don't want to put words in J-Mac's mouth. I don't want to like say, oh yeah, he totally plays the way I said now. But that super chat made me think that maybe oh, I think Quick's right. See, I love
That
Compare-
goes that goes back to what I said. It's the telos.
Yeah,
What was the point of that
purpose?
video? Was it to have a debate or was it to get a lot of engagement and views and
I
make
love
money?
making quick money.
That's awesome. I need to see this debate. All right. You'll have to share that
It
with
was
me
a
after.
while back. I
Okay.
don't remember like when that was. I'll have to find it. If Quick sends it to me, I'll send it to you. But it's like a
I kinda
2-hour long
love
debate. I
watching
don't know.
debates for
Yeah.
that reason. Because a lot of people, they can, oh, I like this, I think this, and it's like a lot of declarative statements. But it's not until there's somebody else to push back that people are have to actually kind of give a little more reasoning for why they believe what they believe. And so you don't normally see that when someone's just talking, but when they're engaged in a debate, then they actually kind of show you what that thought process is built of, which either gives it a lot more substantiveness, what word would you use?
Substantiates it more.
Yeah, substantiates it more, or you kind of go, oh, that's not really based on anything. That's just your opinion. Oh, that's interesting, you know? But it's, I don't know. I liked seeing them because you get to see what ideas are made of.
Which I think
So
also comes out in RPGs because you'll be like, why are you doing that? And you can have this fake world to examine real ideas.
for sure. I've been in a lot of those like nerd debates now, which is I'm not like a debater at all. Like I'm just I don't know. I don't know how I got into this. It's been kind of weird. I just started posting on Twitter and suddenly I'm on everyone's YouTube channels.
Which is funny because I'm almost never on Twitter, but
Yeah. I that's like my main platform. I enjoy it. I've started to get into YouTube. I don't know how you do it, man. I can't, talking to a camera is hard. Like live streams, it's like it's easy on live streams, but like
yeah.
I don't know. Whenever I'm just recording, I'm like, man. Ugh.
After you've
Yeah.
edited yourself in like the 50th video, you're pretty desensitized to it.
Yeah. I just don't like watching myself. I never watch YouTube videos I'm in. I watch YouTube videos about me, but not ones I'm in.
No.
No. I don't like hearing myself. It's weird.
It's weird.
No, you do have to though. How much editing do you do?
Me?
Yeah.
Oh, whenever I do it, like, I do some, like, not.
So you're just
It
stuck
depends on
hearing
the
yourself.
video. Yeah. Yeah, I hate hearing myself. I hate my voice, but I don't know if everyone hates my voice or if I just hate my voice. But it's like it's
Quick
really
poll in
hard
the
for
chat.
you.
Who hates your voice?
I'm because like you notice every little thing you do. You're like, man, I'm moving too much. I'm talking with my hands too much.
Oh yeah, you'll
I
always
just-
do it.
Oh gosh,
What you think?
I don't know how you do it. I don't know how you do
Uh,
it. It's hard.
Years of practice.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I think a certain degree of desensitization is probably there, and hopefully, like learning how to
Mhm.
improve your approach. I mean, you want to do a good job overall.
How to better present yourself and your ideas.
Yeah, like remembering to do your hair or something.
Right.
Once in a
Yeah.
while.
I didn't even do my hair. I just put it up.
Yours
so-
looks great anyway. You've got all that poof, so it always looks like
Oh,
it has
gosh,
natural, like
yes.
a thing going on. Exactly,
Oh,
like
let's
it
take
all looks
down.
deliberate.
Like, oh no. Oh no.
Oh.
The clippy thing is stuck. Ah. Right.
Yep, my hair does that all the time. Eats the hair
Oh, you
clips.
got big hair too?
So you've
No.
got the,
No, I just have really stupid hair.
Uh-huh.
my hair just hates me.
so there you go. Harmony's got the what is it? The brave hair.
Oh
Yeah.
Brave.
Yeah.
There you go. JMax says, Harmony and I have the opposite problem. I love the sound of my own voice. Oh my goodness. Well, we can probably go ahead and round it out here. Harmony, thank you so much for joining us on this. We're gonna have to do it again. It was
Thanks for
super
having me.
fun. Maybe we can get Patty on and maybe make it a little bit more. Oh, we could. There's some other DMs and game designers in here. I'd love to have a panel at some point since you all
That'd be
make
fun.
stuff. Yeah.
This was a really chill stream. Thank you for inviting me.
Yeah, and thank you to all of your audience for coming out and supporting you and participating in the chat. It's always appreciated. It's always fun to have that back and forth. And so we will be back in 2 weeks. And I think I'm okay to announce our next guest, my moderator, Paul, who has been moderating my chats for literally years. My good buddy in England who stays up way too late to help support my channel will be our special guest in 2 weeks on the, what day is that? The 22nd? Yeah, the 22nd. So that should be fun. All right. We're going to do a little outro here. So that video is going to play, but feel free to keep chatting in the chat, obviously. And I can respond, or we can respond to you in the chat there. So in the meantime, check out our super awesome end outro thingy. All right. Yeah. 2 weeks. Barry, cover me. All right, guys, this is it. Copy that. No more sandwiches, Barry.
What's wrong with this place? I'm in the west corridor. I'm right outside the generator room. I'm out of bullets.